Um, this is kind of a building a bit upon the prior 2102 executive order DAHP academies, where Maureen and Maddie provided introductions to 2102 and the use of the built environment EZ form. So this one kind of takes and focuses a bit more on ground disturbing activities and land acquisition, and where you have demolition of structures, but that also involves ground disturbance. So 2102 will be the focus on this, with more emphasis upon the archaeology. And so this is a guidance for not only state managers, but also grantees and others that are in the cultural resource field that encounter Governor's Order Executive 2102 requirements, which is triggered by state money. So we follow the money. And it has been around a while. While the latest iteration is from 21, 5 years old now. The original form of 0505, which embodied these same principles and kind of requirements, is over 20 years old now. The purpose is kind of topics that we emphasize here in 2102 is that 2102 is all about the protection and collaboration on identifying and evaluating and protecting significant cultural resources of Washington's past. And 2102 is incumbent upon state agencies and state employees to lead by example in terms of the protection of cultural resources. It acknowledges that Washington has a rich archaeological, historic, and cultural past, and that the protection and preservation of these historic and cultural resources are needed to reflect and enable us as a people to kind of understand our history and where we came from. People of Washington want their cultural resources protected. And importantly, 2102 broadens that concept to also take and recognize the importance that tribal citizens and tribal governments have in protecting their specific cultural, sacred, and religious places across the landscape of Washington. The key to successful 2102 consultation in any endeavor, whether it's building alteration, whether it's archaeological ground disturbance investigation, whether it is land acquisition, is consultation. And the other key participants in this are our office, the DAHP, and the Governor's Office of Indian Affairs, who has a key policy role in state government in establishing kind of overarching government policies and assisting individual state agencies in their tribal consultation and liaison efforts. So the key, and in all caps, is consultation, the ability to kind of have a meaningful, robust, and open dialogue with these other parties. Who's responsible? Well, as mentioned in the last time, again, Executive Order 2102 is directed toward state agencies, and it focuses upon state-funded projects that are not covered under Section 106 under federal law. The state agency can delegate these responsibilities to a grantee or applicant, and that happens in some cases. And all projects that involve state money require review if they have the potential to alter, damage, or destroy cultural resources, or if they involve land acquisition. And so the state agency is kind of the initial kickoff on this, is required to consult with our office and with the tribal governments that have an interest in the land where the project is going to occur. Well, what's required of 2102? Compliance, consultation, and evidence of that with the DAHP, that's our office, and with the concerned tribal governments. And we have Resident 29, and we also routinely deal with tribes that are now resident in neighboring states, but had traditional and ceded lands in Washington. So it is routine that we contact tribes in Idaho, such as the Coeur d'Alene or Nez Perce. Same thing with Oregon, with Umatilla or Warm Springs or Grand Ronde. So we take and interact with a great number of tribal governments, around 30, 36 on different projects. So what is required of the state agency or the grantee? To take and enter that dialogue with us and with the concerned tribes, identify if there's cultural resource concerns there, and then take reasonable steps to avoid, to minimize, or if avoidance and minimization is not totally successful, then to develop some mitigative and treatment options to address any impacts to those resources. Agencies all are required to have their own tribal liaison. And so if you have questions about which tribes to contact, again, I would start at your own agency's management team and your tribal officer, liaison officer, or you can contact GOIA, Governor's Office of Indian Affairs. And we also have information on our websites about the tribal cultural staff, their contact information, and some interactive maps to assist you in helping identifying which tribes to contact for your project at a specific area in Washington. Well, what we do, we provide technical expertise and opinions and evaluations to assist you in your project delivery. And so we will take and review your project, make specific recommendations if there is additional on-site inspections that are needed, or if you have a resource there, kind of the importance of that resource and dialogue with you and the concerned tribes in ways to avoid, minimize, or kind of treat any adverse impacts to that resource. We also review agreements between agencies and tribes, memorializing those stipulations in an agreement, a memorandum of understanding. And we also do staff trainings to individual agencies and do presentations like this, short courses to assist state staff and grantees or cultural resource professionals in understanding the 2102 process. Well, the first thing is contact us. We have an email box that is devoted specifically to 2102, and it's named appropriately enough, 2102 inbox. And we are all digital, so there are no paper submissions. Everything is done via email, via PDF letters or easy forms that we had talked about in past sessions, and by the use of the agency or the consultants with our wizard system. And past and upcoming wizard short courses take in, along with tutorials on our webpage, assist you in kind of getting on a glide path to a digital kind of success with us. By uploading your shape files of your project footprint, uploading technical reports, of uploading historic property inventory forms or archaeological site forms that professional archaeologists have identified. So once you have contacted us, once you have contacted the concerned tribes in the area, we need to know about the specific details of ground disturbance, or the land alteration, or the building demolition or construction, and all the different nuances and work elements that's associated with that project. Are there lay down and staging areas that have to be prepared? Are there utility prisms that have to be trenched in? what elements are kind of the ground disturbing activities. And we'll need a map of that. And so depending on the scale of your project, the location, there's a wide variety of maps. We also have kind of available Esri maps, and our wizard uses a variety of different map templates with everything from street views to USGS for kind of rural forested areas. We also need the agency's name and grant manager's email address. This is particularly important if you are a grantee that is doing this on behalf of a state agency, because we will send the letter back to you and the state grant manager that is responsible for the 2102 compliance, that is delegated the work to you. So we'll be sending a letter. Again, all of this is digital. The product of our kind of consultation and information exchange in 2102 is, as I think Maddie or Maureen note, we might request more information. In that case, for archaeology, that requires the on-site investigation by a professional archaeologist of the footprint and associated disturbances associated with your project. That typically results in a report that provides background information about your project, about the environment, about the history and the kinds of resources that were previously recorded in the general area, and then their professional analysis of their field work, the systematic coverage of the project footprint, the doing shovel probes or other subsurface examination if it's a hardscape or if it's sedimentary or complex depositional history. And their findings is done as a professional report that can be uploaded into Wizard. And that's to be expected. And the consultant can be ID'd and added to the Wizard project under the consultant tab. So those reports are needed and uploaded ultimately for our review and for tribal review to make a decision about the character of impacts that your project may have. Where we have cultural resources that are there, then the issue obviously is there going to be damage to an archaeological site or to a traditional cultural place. And then we enter into a dialogue about how do we minimize that, avoid it, or have some treatments to try to mitigate it. And the mitigation ultimately is memorialized in an agreement called an MOU, Memorandum of Agreement, or Memorandum of Understanding between the state entity providing the money, the grantee, and our office and the concerned tribes. In some cases, we have some agencies on 2102, they have found that putting specific stipulations in their actual funding grant agreement has worked very well. And that takes and has the added thing that any violation, of course, of grant conditions could have some financial penalties in terms of not following through in the agreed upon stipulations. If archaeology is involved, and when archaeology is involved, that would alter a site, then we have the need for an archaeological excavation permit. And this is one additional element that isn't necessarily kind of reflected in 2102 when you're just dealing with buildings. Remember that when you have buildings, we've got the easy form done and a determination is made there. Generally, we take and are looking for, as Maddie and Maureen said, 45 years or older, current photographs, and correspondence with the tribes, all for our kind of coming back and dialoguing with you about what's next. I know oftentimes we get questions, what's ground disturbance? And here's a real quick AI, Claude or Demian or just dictionary definition. Ground disturbance: is defined as any work, operation, activity that penetrates, compacts, or disturbs the ground, regardless of depth. It includes activities like excavation. This is mechanical or manual hand excavation, trenching, drilling, tunneling, clearing, tree, root ball ripsing, post holes, fiber optic, plow insertion. So we deal with about 18,000 projects a year, and we deal with all kinds of different types of ground disturbance that has the potential to impact archaeological resources that are on the landscape and in the ground. Well, as we've talked about before, we've got a number of different kind of products that are kind of coming out of your consultative effort. You've got our DHP forms, the easy review form. You might have HPIs or historic property forms that Maddie and Marie went through, and prior we would have professional cultural resource reports if you're dealing with archaeology, and if they discover archaeological sites in your project footprint, then we'll also have archaeological forms. Again, all of these are digital and are created in the Wizard system. Don't want to go too much about this because Maddie, they provided a summary and kind of walkthrough in a past lunch and learn session. And the same thing with the sheets are pretty straightforward. One of the things that's a bit different between the built environment 2102 review and the archaeology is in the built environment, you have determinants of National Register, State Register eligibility. And again, these are to assess the significance of a historic property. And those that are significant obviously will require kind of more dialogue with us and consultation. Archaeology is a bit different because archaeological sites, human remains, are all absolutely protected by statute from alteration without a permit from our office. And so if you have an archaeological site, the issue then becomes its boundaries, what is its specific kind of physical characteristic and place on the landscape, and how can that polygon, so to speak, be protected from any disturbance with your project going forward. Any alteration that would be necessary for the project, if it can't be avoided, again, would take and trigger a permit from our office. And that is a separate kind of pathway that would occur as an outcome of our 2102 consultations. Again, when we deal with projects of all scale and scope, from small fence and watering trough emplacements to fiber optic cables that go for dozens of miles. So again, depending on the scale of the project, we at DAHP or the tribes may come back to you with kind of more questions or more detailed maps or more requests about perhaps other work elements that may not have been clear in the initial submission. So your key success factors involve an open dialogue with us and the tribes. Talk with us. We're here Monday through Friday. We're a phone call or a Teams or a Zoom meeting away, and build a good rapport with our office and the tribes. That's key, that open and communication and trust. And this is particularly important for state agencies as a good neighbor, because you will be coming back and back and back again to the DAHP and to the concerned tribes in the project area. So you will take and evolve over time a relationship with these folks that I deal with all the time, daily, at a wide variety of different agencies, tribes, and consulting firms. Be transparent in your project, and especially when it comes to changes. We frequently get a project where it may be in the initial design phase or maybe only 40 to 60%. Then they come back and the footprint changes or there's new work elements added. That requires a kind of follow-on. You reopen up the discussion and say, hey, we've had a change. We're doing this here now, and incorporate the feedback, and then solicit the comments on these new changed circumstances. If a project is already underway and you discover human remains, archaeological resources, you must stop. Where human remains are absolutely protected in Washington State, and you have a legal requirement to notify. And so you'll see oftentimes attached to the 2102 correspondence is an unanticipated fine plan or inadvertent fine plan that, again, that identifies the contact chain of your grant manager at the state agency, DAHP here, both myself or one of the archaeologists or Dr. Tassa, who deals with human remains. And we will work through the discovery and how that find is handled and what kind of options are available on the fly with you as that discovery is understood and consulted on. Do all state-funded projects need review? Yes, if they're with ground disturbing activities, if they're property acquisition, and if you're altering buildings over 45 years or older, if there's any demolitions. And again, some of these may include one or all three of these different activities. Building demolition or building construction might require new land acquisition and obviously going to require ground disturbance. So there's different kind of elements that we're looking at when we do a 2102 review. How long will the project take? Well, we keep pretty good metrics. We have been doing this for 20 years now under 0505 and now 2102. Last year we had 18,000 projects, both federal, state 2102 and SEPAs. So we deal at an industrial scale of reviews at the DAHP. Last year we had around over 3,500 2102 projects, and 99% are under 30 days. I mean, oftentimes 90% are within those 5-day increments of the business week or so. Again, a lot of it depends on the complexity of the project and any back and forth of additional information we need. But again, we've got 20 years of kind of experience in the kinds of projects. So if you have a project, have questions about it, call us. We've probably encountered it in the past. Can DAHP contact the tribes on your behalf? No. The state agency has an important government-to-government relationship with tribal governments. And so it's important that if you have questions about tribal contacts, to talk with your tribal liaison. If you're a grantee, talk to your state agency grant manager, who can loop in their tribal liaison if needed. And ultimately, we also have Goya there, who also provides statewide assistance on tribal contacts. One of the kind of tweaks that occurred between 0505 and 2102 is the last bullet point there. Evidence of tribal consultation is key. And that's a new element that came part of 2102, was that the state agency, even though it delegates that potential consultation effort to the grantee, it has to maintain an audit record of those correspondence and be satisfied that the consultation was informed and robust and complete. Questions? I ran through that in 25 minutes-ish. And Kim or Jessica or Maddie, any questions that you see in the chat?
Not seeing anything in the chat yet. Yep, no
Well,
questions
good.
in the
That
chat.
was
I think a lot
good.
of folks maybe didn't get the updated time, so it's going to be great that we have this recorded for everybody. They can come back. And then also opportunities coming up for Q&A in
And
June
I
and
will stop
July.
sharing and turn it back to you, Kim.
Great. Thank you, Rob. We're probably going to hang out here for a little while because we do have time for Q&A. But that's the end of our presentation. So if you don't have any questions, you're welcome to go. But we'll hang out here for a little bit. I'm going to stop the recording.